go.
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. Later on this hour, my brother and I will be giving away a My Pillow. More on this in due course. Now, what did Dr. Gorka tell us about the over 100 positions that are unfilled because Congress is slow walking them? The Trump administration? Important positions to be filled? Let's go back, way back, 5 years ago. Chuck Schumer.
Modified. And that's what we have done today. We haven't ripped them up. We've modified them in ways that can make things work. Who in America doesn't think a president, Democrat or Republican, deserves his or her picks for who should run the agencies? Nobody.
Except if it's President Trump who wants to pick people to run agencies. Now, according to Fox's Ed Henry, Rod Rosenstein said to Trump that he is not a target in either the Mueller or the Cohen probes.
There's a lot. News signs tonight that President Trump is not a criminal target in either the Michael Cohen or Robert Mueller investigations. But instead, what we're seeing is some of the one-time FBI officials who have been challenging the president's candor, namely James Comey and Andrew McCabe, as you just noted in that tweet, are facing new scrutiny themselves tonight. Bottom line is Bloomberg kicked a lot of this off today by reporting that at a meeting last Thursday, Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein again told the president he's not a target in the Mueller probe. The president instead is a subject of the investigation, meaning his conduct is under investigation, but there's not enough evidence to charge him. That point had been reported last month. What's significant is Rosenstein was now repeating this for the first time since the president's longtime personal attorney, Michael Cohen, had his homes and office raided. And Fox News is specifically hearing Rosenstein also told the president he's not a target of this separate Cohen investigation. That is new.
Now, I told you yesterday when Jake Tapper interviewed James Comey, his whole tone was different. And it's pretty clear that James Comey, his interview is not being well received, including by people that in the FBI who once used to respect him. Now, Tapper asked him a very interesting question. You were saying that if anybody after a year or so in investigating doesn't already have an idea where the investigation is going, that they ought to be fired for incompetence, which is why you began writing your exoneration of Hillary before you even interviewed her. Well, then what about, I asked you, is there anything that Russia has on Trump? You go, I don't know, it's possible. Yeah, but you interviewed him, you probed him for about 10 months. Well, don't you have some idea? And saying it's possible, is that fair?
I think it's unlikely, but I think it's possible.
But isn't that construct unfair to President Trump in a way? Because the question was if President Trump was compromised by the Russians. You say it's possible. I don't think it's likely, but it's possible. I mean, it's possible there's life on other planets. We don't know. For you, somebody like you with your reputation, saying it's possible it's also possible that it's not true. Isn't that another way you could look at the same question?
Sure, but I'm not looking to the stars saying there might be green men out there. There's a reason I say it's possible. Two things struck me. One, the president's constantly bringing it up with me to deny it. And in my experience as an
constantly bringing it up
investigator, it's not an ironclad rule, but it's a striking thing when someone constantly brings up something to deny that you didn't ask about. And then second, I've always been struck in my encounters with him that he wouldn't criticize Vladimir Putin even in private, which struck me as odd. Now, those aren't definitive, those aren't conclusive facts, but the reason I'm saying it's possible is there are things that lead my common sense to believe it's possible.
But isn't that kind of cute? I mean, you're not saying that you have evidence of it, you're just saying it's possible. I mean, do you have evidence that President Trump has been compromised by the Russians? Have you seen evidence of it?
No, and I think I've said that throughout. I'm trying to be transparent here's my reasoning. Here's why an honest answer has to be it's possible. Now, I'm not saying it's likely. In fact, I've said all along, and I'm repeating it to you here today, it's unlikely in my view, but it's possible.
Now, Jake, pretty good job. Too bad you didn't ask him. Now, you said that Hillary lacked the intent to violate the Espionage Act. Where in the section in question does it require intent? You didn't do that, Jake, but it's pretty good.
So let's talk about the investigation and what you can talk about it. In January 2017, when you met with President Trump and you did that oral presentation of what's in that two-page memo summarizing the Steele dossier, we know from the book that you talked about these unverified allegations involving him and prostitutes. Did you brief him about any of the other things in the Steele dossier? Claims that his associates, Michael Cohen or Paul Manafort, were potentially working with the Russians? Or was it only about the prostitutes?
It was only about the salacious part of it.
Why? Why only about that?
Because that was the part that the leaders of the intelligence community agreed he needed to be told about, because we knew it and thought it was about to become public. And if it was true, we didn't know whether it was true, it would be important to let him know this as part of a defensive briefing.
While we're on the subject of the dossier, by the time you left, how much of it do you think you were able to either prove to be correct, verify, or debunk?
The work was still underway. I wouldn't be able to say anyway if I was still there, but the work was still underway when I was fired.
Some of it, is it fair to say that some of it you verified as true and some of it you debunked as false?
I think all I can say is a core part of it was consistent with lots of other intelligence, core part of it being the Russians are engaged in an orchestrated campaign to influence the American election.
So in other words, the dossier had not been verified. Now, Comey said that Trump treats women like meat. And Tapper says, well, where'd you get that?
I want to get clarity on something else that you said this week. You said this week that President Trump, quote, treats women like meat. Is that from some personal experience that you saw or heard about, or is that just from things that he has said?
Just from media, not from personal experience.
Oh, okay. So you've heard other people say Trump treats women like meat, therefore Trump treats women like meat.
I want to get clarity on something else that you said this week. You said this week that President Trump, quote, treats women like meat. Is that from some personal experience that you saw or heard about, or is that just from things that he has said?
Just from media, not from personal experience.
Now, what about your keeping a biased agent as the lead investigator? What does that say about the integrity of the investigation? What does that say about you as a leader?
Your book is about leadership throughout. Does it say anything about your leadership that Strzok, who was a very high-level FBI agent, was doing this? Did you set in any way any sort of tone where that kind of glib insult of a major political candidate at the time would be not that big a deal?
No, but it does say something about my leadership. I mean, I'm responsible for the senior members of my team, and I've asked myself the same question. I tried to model a certain way of acting, which did not include that kind of behavior, but I asked myself, should I have given them all a speech? But these are grown-ups. These are senior people in the counterintelligence division. I don't want to be too tough on myself, but yeah, I'm responsible. I'm responsible for their actions and their poor judgment.
Both sides hate you, you know.
You're an interesting public figure because I don't know anyone so reviled by the Hillary Clinton partisans and the Donald Trump partisans. Does that mean to you that you did your job right, or does it mean to you that, or does it mean something else necessarily?
Well, it means mostly that my deputy was right when he told me in the summer of 2015 that I'm totally screwed as this investigation began. But doesn't mean that I'm right that everybody hates me. I could still be wrong.
Do you feel that everybody hates you?
No, I mean the partisans on both. You said the Trump people and the Clinton people. They both can't be right that I'm in the other team's pocket, which I hear all the time. That can't be possible. The challenge of being the FBI in today's political environment is you're not on anybody's side. That confuses people, which I get, and it angers people, which I also get. And there's only so much you can do about it except constantly try to show transparency. Show people your work so that fair-minded people can make a judgment. And that's what I've tried to do in this book.
All right. Well, the book is selling quite a bit. Congratulations on that. And thanks for coming here and taking our questions. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me,
FBI Director James Comey.
Maybe there was some momentary confusion.
Ahead of the curve. She's done a great job. She's a very effective ambassador. There might have been some momentary confusion about that.
Maybe that's what it was. Momentary confusion. Hard to say. 888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. My brother will be along in just a few minutes.